Beverley's camp would also shrink with the loss of two of its biggest stars, who departed to pursue opportunities overseas, though both left on good terms with lesliekong and would eventually make a return to Beverleys. Jimmy Cliff went to New York in 1964 to appear at the World's Fair there as part of a ska package put on by the Jamaican government to promote the island to the rest of the world. After that, he would go to England at the suggestion of Chris Blackwell and spend an extended period of time in the 60s journeying abroad. He went to America for a while, even spent some time in Brazil, becoming one of the first reggae stars there, trying to find his niche, trying to find his style. Derek Morgan, meanwhile, had been talked by Prince Buster, once their feud had settled down, into going off with him to the UK to do some recording for the Blue Beat label and its parent company, Melodisc. Blue Beat having issued Derek's Be Still, done at the very first Beverley's recording session. They would spend a few months over there, then get tired of the British weather and return to Jamaica. But this left a vacuum at the top of the Beverley's hierarchy into which Desmond Dekker would step. He would remain very loyal to lesliekong, and his faith in the producer was rewarded with a bigger and bigger series of hits as the decade progressed. By 1966, the beat of ska was beginning to slow down into what became known as rocksteady. Ska's impressive, overpowering horn arrays being moved somewhat to a background role. The guitar, bass, drums, and keys moving more to the forefront, slowing the beat down into a shorter, choppier, more tightly wound rhythm that suited many vocalists very well. Singers and her vocal harmony groups beginning to become more popular, and the slowed down beat was ideal for Desmond Dekker's high, quavery voice. Particularly once he added harmony vocalists, the aces, originally the four aces, to fill out his sound. This was the era of the Rude Boys, lawless youths, many of them who had come from rural areas seeking opportunities in the capital city of Kingston with no jobs, nothing to do. Many of them started getting into trouble, getting restless. The Rude Boys had a style, a swagger, and a propensity for violence that either repulsed the more conservative, law-abiding elements of Jamaican society or enthralled the ones who were looking for a outlaw rebel figure to rally behind. And soon the phenomena of the Rude Boy records began to appear as the Rocksteady era dawned. One of the earliest Rocksteady hits and one of the first to reference the Rude Boys would be a massive hit by Desmond Dekker, one of his signature songs in which he referenced the James Bond spy franchise 007, tying it in with the Rat Pack vehicle Ocean's 11 and bringing the Rude Boys into the mix as well. Desmond's songwriting was very inspired by what he saw happening around him, things he heard going on. He had witnessed a student demonstration broken up by the police. He referenced that in the song as well. The song was called 007, in which he sings, "Rude boys a loot, them a shoot, them a whale in a shanty town," summing up some of the violence and unrest that was happening in Jamaican society, with the Rude Boys kind of at the heart of it or in the mix. The song was recorded in October 1966 with music played by Trinidadian guitarist Lynn Tate and his band The Jets. One of the prime motivators for the rhythmic shift into the rocksteady beat. The song was a massive hit, and several months later, in summer 1967, it even crossed over into the British charts. Of 007, of course, included on the Tougher Than Tough box set. To capitalize on this success, lesliekong would issue 2 LPs by Desmond Dekker in Jamaica under the names Action and Intensified, kind of doubled up on a Dr. Bird CD here from a few years ago. Desmond Dekker and the Aces with Action and Intensified. Action including that smash hit 007, as well as a follow-up, Unity, which narrowly missed winning the Jamaican Festival Song Competition, came in number 2. Very prestigious song competition in Jamaica. From here, the hits would keep flowing for Desmond Dekker and the Aces. They would travel to the UK to promote their records, but the success of 007 would be eclipsed 2 years later once the beat had shifted again into reggae itself. This time, Desmond Dekker would put out a song with somewhat of a biblical view of the suffering endured by the poor in Jamaica. I get up in the morning, every morning, slaving for bread, sir, so that every mouth can be fed. Poor me Israelites. Poor Me Israelites, or Just Israelites, once again was a massive hit that quickly took off despite entrenched resistance from the British pop establishment who tried to hold it back. They could not contain it. Once it entered the charts, swiftly reached number 1, the first ever international reggae number 1 song, Desmond Dekker and the Aces with Israelites. It was released on the Pyramid label in the UK. Back in 1962, Leslie had been one of the initial investors in Chris Blackwell's Island Records. Him and Australian recording engineer Graham Goodall, each having a 24% stake in the label, and some of lesliekong's productions appearing on Island in the UK. By 1966, however, they had been bought out, and the two of them, Leslie and Graham Goodall, would enter into a partnership with the Pyramid label to release Leslie's productions in England, and Pyramid would carry Israelites, but it would be picked up for release in the US as well. Wouldn't make it to number 1 there, but it did crack the top 20, appearing on the Uni label. Israelites by Desmond Dekker and the Aces. There would also be an LP on the Uni label titled after that. Desmond Dekker's album releases a bit confusing. Different releases in Jamaica, the UK, and America, different track listings, different titles, different covers, but the Jamaican ones were Action and Intensified. This would be the start of a run of chart successes that would bring lesliekong into the forefront of the music.
Be
Rocksteady beat took over Jamaican music, more and more songs commenting on the Rude Boys began to come out, either condemning them, urging them to give up their lawlessness, or some celebrating their rebelliousness, depending on where you stood. Into this stepped Derek Morgan, who began a second stint at Beverleys. He had returned from the UK, done some recording at Studio One, formed a group called the Blues Blenders, but really had his eye on returning to Lesliekong and Beverleys. But when he talked to Leslie, Kong told him he couldn't take him back because Derek was under a binding contract with Melodisc in the UK. Derek had to go to Edward Siaga, finance minister for Jamaica, to straighten out his legal situation, and thereafter Derek was free to go back to Beverleys. Early in 1967, with music again supplied by Lynn Tate and the Jets, he would record another early Rocksteady Rude Boy referencing song. This one kind of a humorous courtroom skit with Derek assuming the spoken persona of a judge with Rude Boys, done by the cool harmonies of Desmond Dekker and his brother George being brought before him. The song Tougher Than Tough, with the Rude Boys defiantly declaring that rougher than rough, tougher than tough, we are iron, strong like lion, would give its title to the box set, Tougher Than Tough, encapsulating 30 years of Jamaican music history, produced for lesliekong and Beverleys. On this one, Derek was neatly able to sidestep openly endorsing the Rude Boys while somewhat promoting their rebelliousness, with the courtroom scene ending in no verdict as Derek declares, "Court adjourned." This baton would be picked up by Prince Buster, who would issue a song called Judge Dredd later that same year, again taking some of a humorous tack with the Rude Boys, but this time sentencing them to stern terms of imprisonment. There would be a bit of a back and forth between Derek and Prince Buster again, fairly lighthearted in tone, with Prince Buster's song Judge Dredd referenced on further sides by Derek for Beverleys called Court Dismiss and Judge Dredd in Court. By now, the Rocksteady era, the classic Beverleys label there, red, white, and black color scheme with the dancing couple there. That song, Tougher Than Tough, had been inspired by a real-life rude boy named Busby, who had urged Derek Morgan to make a song about him and his friends. Busby, not someone you wanted to say no to. When Busby heard the song Tougher Than Tough played in a dance, he got so energized, was dancing around, and either threw his beer against the wall, smashing it, or spilled it with his energetic motions. Either way, his beer spilled on a group of girls nearby, got all over their dresses. The girls were affiliated with a rival gang called the Vikings, and Busby was fatally shot soon after that in retaliation. The rude boy life, not one that lent itself to a long life term. Derek Morgan's further hits in the Rocksteady era for lesliekong. Some of them would come out on an LP called Best of Derek Morgan. That's also included on the Forward March 2 CD, Best of Derek Morgan. There's also some Derek Morgan sides for lesliekong included on the reggae retro comp Do the Bang Bang. It's a local find some years ago, 2 LP comp from several years back. Do the Bang Bang, all lesliekong productions on here. A retrial of Rudy, Derek Morgan milking the rude boy theme in the Rocksteady era. The further Beverley's Rocksteady successes would come with artists like the Spanish Tonians, Austin Faithful, George Dekker, brother of Desmond, and many others. Instrumental hits by saxophonist and former member of the Scatolites, Roland Alfonso, who would assume something of a musical supervisor role at the label, musical arranger, bringing in some elements of the former Supersonics band, who would perform as the Beverleys All-Stars. Some of the Beverleys Rocksteady hits collected on the 2 CD In a Rocking Mood, also put out by Dr. Bird, includes an entire instrumental album by Roland Alfonso, who acted as the musical arranger for Beverleys in this time. The All-Stars, as they became known, would also record for many other producers and become the premier session group of the era, and worked for lesliekong as well. He always wanted the best musicians available, paid for quality, and their sound would typify the classic late 1960s Beverleys sound, with a crisp, clear, somewhat commercially oriented sound that was never less than authentically Jamaican.